Nolo the Rolo asks, if you had to pick either the People Mover or the monorail to have as a form of transportation outside of Orlando, which would you pick? Well, I live in New York. I've smelled the subways. I'm going to go with the People Mover. Hello everybody and welcome to the Disney Q&A, the series in which you ask me all sorts of Disney questions, whether it's about the history or the movies or the parks, and I try to give you answers to the best of my ability. As we start off every episode, I'm going to pick two of my favorite answers from last week's question, which involved what characters would you like to see more and more of around the parks? And one of them comes from Memethist, who says, I want Gravity Falls face characters. They have Phineas and Ferb, so why not have Mabel and Dipper as well? I know Gravity Falls ended, but hey, Phineas and Ferb ended too, so why not? I think that's a good choice. I've never watched it like religiously, but I do enjoy Gravity Falls, so I think it would be cool to see more of them in the parks. And then the other answer comes from that guy who says, I would want all of the mountains, Splash Mountain, Space Mountain, Thunder Mountain, etc., to walk around the parks. They would also play the music and safety spiels from the ride. I picked that because it's probably the most creative answer I've ever heard. And now I'm just picturing like this big like Matterhorn or Space Mountain waddling around, just like giving the safety spiel about pulling down the arm bars. That would be ridiculous. Never gonna happen. But hey, we could dream, right? So why not? We have a bunch of great questions this week, so I'm just going to start diving right into them. Our first question this week comes from Jimmy McKierney, who asks, if Disney is focusing more on Epcot, do you think they'll add more countries? They saved space for extra countries when planning Epcot Center in the 80s, and I would really like to see an Australian pavilion. That's a great question, and one that I've asked myself many times. You know, like you said, they did plan for many, many countries. In fact, if you look at the blueprints of Epcot, and you can find them online, they have a lot of empty lots there. And if you walk around World Showcase today, you notice that there are these spaces. You know, the idea was originally going to be that these countries were all going to be like buddied up next to each other. But now instead you think of things like, you know, the space with the train set outside of Germany to the right of Germany. Like there was space for a country there. That whole area with the African, you know, tribal setup before you hit the bridge and you go over to China, that was space for another country. They had all this space and they never used them because getting funding for these countries was extremely difficult, and they went with what they had with the time that they had. And I think it's an interesting question to ask if we might see new countries in the future. Now, that's a tough one. Because if it were to happen, my guess is it would have to be completely funded by Disney as a company. The way it used to work is they would try to go to these different countries to get funding for these pavilions. It's not unlike what they did with a lot of the rides back then. And the problem with that was it was harder to get funding from a country than a company, because countries, you know, the governments tend to change leadership every couple of years. So getting a 10-year commitment is a very difficult thing to do. In fact, that's why for a lot of these countries, rather than going to the government themselves, they went to companies within the government. That said, I personally think that sort of sponsorship model is slowly on its way out, so I don't think it'll happen that way. So what it would really take is for Disney to have a lot of properties within a certain country so that it would benefit them to make a country pavilion that sort of focuses on it so that they can put more focus on their properties. Australia, I think, would be cool. I think, personally, rather than Australia, I would like to see sort of like a whole oceanic. So you could do Australia, New Zealand. You could sort of do, you know, a Polynesian area. And, you know, with properties like Moana, maybe that'll become more of a possibility, because then you could do Moana, you could do Stitch, you could do Finding Nemo, since I guess, you know, they go to Sydney. So, you know, never say never. I don't think it's on their docket. I think they're going to focus more on Future World when they do put focus on Epcot. But I would love to see it. You know, the space is there. They should definitely use it, or at least start putting in more rides for the countries that are there using that space. Our next question comes from The Random Person. And The Random Person asks, hey Rob, do you think Fantasmic will ever be redone or just reimagined to have more movies? If so, what movies do you think Disney will add and why? This is a great question, and oddly, it was a question that I misread when I put it on my list, because I thought you were asking if they were going to get rid of it completely or reimagine it. And I do think Fantasmic's pretty much a staple of both Disneyland and Hollywood Studios, so I don't think it'll ever go completely. I do think you'll see like a Fantasmic 2.0 where they like revamp it majorly. As to what they would add, I would hope they would stick within the Disney family. I know I'm a big believer in embracing the fact that Disney now owns Marvel, and they own Star Wars, and they own Pixar. But Fantasmic to me feels like a Disney property related show. And so I wouldn't want to see Star Wars or Marvel stuff in there. I would really just want to see the Disney stuff. So, they can throw in Frozen, they can throw in Moana when it comes out, Zootopia, that sort of stuff. I don't think there are any older movies that I'd like to see worked into Fantasmic unless they were to become relevant again. So, we got Beauty and the Beast coming back. Beauty and the Beast already in Fantasmic, is represented there. But say they redid Robin Hood and did like a live action Robin Hood or a CGI Robin Hood, maybe bring Robin Hood into the mix. I do think it should stay relevant, whatever it is. Our next question comes from Drummer Master, and Drummer Master asks, if a big name at Disney came up to you and said, Rob, we want to put a new Osborne Lights display somewhere new, where should we put it? What would you say? Personally, I thought Main Street, of course, but I think that would ruin the old-time, family time, Christmas feel that the areas have during the holidays. Interesting question. So the Osborne Lights, if you don't know what they are, they've recently stopped doing them, but they used to do an annual Christmas light show over in Hollywood Studios on the Streets of America, which is now being torn down for Star Wars Land and Toy Story Land. If I were to have to put it anywhere, I agree that Main Street is like sort of your go-to answer, and I don't think that would be the best choice because I think it'd be a little crowded and distracting. Honestly, if we're dreaming big here, and if we're going to bring back the Osborne Lights, don't just do like a tiny little show in a corner of a park somewhere. Do it somewhere big. I say just do all of World Showcase, right? My favorite part of Illuminations is when the countries start to light up, and there's something about it that's just so awe-inspiring, and it's got that feeling of unity. And so, I mean, it would be sort of stepping on eggshells there because not every country celebrates Christmas, and so is it sensitive to put Christmas lights all over that country's pavilion. But I think just purely from a display perspective, it would be really cool to see, Christmas lights all across World Showcase. If you can't do that, I say do that little pavilion area in Future World between Spaceship Earth and the Fountain of Nations, where you've got that big overlay. Just like cover that whole place with lights. I think that'd be a cool thing to do, and it would definitely bring more attention over to Future World. So that'd be a cool backup in case any of the countries had problems with, doing Christmas lights. That's my question for you guys this week. Where would you want to see a new Osborne Lights display? It doesn't necessarily have to be in the parks, just anywhere on Disney property. Let me know in the comments below. I'll pick my 2 favorite answers, and I'll feature them in the next Disney Q&A. Our next question comes from NS Gaming, and NS Gaming asks, do you think that something like Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom or Agent P's Adventures will ever come to Disney's Hollywood Studios and or Disney's Animal Kingdom? If so, what would you like to see in these interactive adventures? Great question. If you've never been to the parks, these are sort of spread out, interactive, well, as the name implies, adventures that you sign up for and you do around the park. So you won't go to one location to do this. You'll go to all sorts of different locations. The Agent P sort of has you going around the World Showcase. Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom has you going all around the Magic Kingdom. And it's a cool way to get people to do something that doesn't involve like getting in line and going to an attraction. I think the fact that you're seeing Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom in the Magic Kingdom after Agent P, which was originally the Kim Possible adventure, means that something's working there, and that it's something that is worth investing at least in those 2 parks. And I would love to see them in the other parks. And at first, I only had an answer for Hollywood Studios, but now I have an answer for both. And this is what I would love to see. I would love to see in Hollywood Studios, when Star Wars Land's open, a Star Wars adventure. Now, obviously, it'd be much more compact because it would happen in Star Wars Land, but I think that would be really cool. And I think if you had something compact enough and short enough, rather than just having the shorter experience, you could do another experience, like maybe in Toy Story Land, where maybe you're looking for lost toys with Woody and Buzz, and maybe in Star Wars Land, you're a bounty hunter and you're trying to track down one of your bounties. I think that would be a lot of fun. I don't know if it would work into the older parts of Hollywood Studios, because that sort of thing wouldn't work too well with, old-timey 1930s Hollywood. As for Animal Kingdom, obviously there's no dedicated part of the park for this, but I think it'd be really cool to do something Zootopia related. There's Zootopia. The whole movie is essentially these two animals trying to solve a crime in Zootopia. So you could do something like that, where you're going around trying to solve this mystery in the Animal Kingdom. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So I would love to see that. there. And who knows, maybe we will. I do think as time goes on, Disney is looking more and more towards digital and interactive and sort of out of the box entertainment experiences for the parks to sort of deal with the lines that you get with the bigger, newer attractions. Our next question comes from Nick Wilson, and Nick Wilson asks, would you like to see Disney World Monopoly, where the popular rides, popular resorts, and popular restaurants are all properties? What would you call the currency? Well, you're in luck, Nick, because this isn't actually a dream. This is a reality. There is a Disney version of Monopoly that focuses on the theme parks, and I believe they're on their 3rd edition, so you can pick that up. In fact, I believe the 3rd edition even has like a pop-up Cinderella castle in the middle. It looks pretty cool. Personally, I'm not a fan of Monopoly the game, and I'm pretty sure that game was made to criticize the concept of Monopoly, so I think it is almost objectively a bad board game, but I think it's a cool idea. We don't have a Disney World specific one. They have a Disney Park one. So like, the 2 Boardwalk and Park Place is more of Matterhorn and Space Mountain. So it sort of goes across the different parks. As for the currency, I think that's an easy one. Disney dollars, because that was a real actual Disney currency. And if you want to learn more about Disney dollars, you can check out my Did You Know Disney video about the currency and what it was like before they phased it out recently. See, kids, that's called synergy. And Michael Eisner loved it. In general, I would just love to see more Disney board game stuff. I know there's like a Magic Kingdom board game out there, and when doing research to see if this Monopoly version existed, I realized that there are some Disney board games out there, so I kind of want to look into them, maybe even make some videos on them. I don't know. I think that's an interesting world to dive into. And our final question this week comes from Hybrid, who asks, what's your opinion on the Golden Oak houses on Walt Disney World property? Well, my opinion on them is I would love to own one day, but I probably won't. If you've never heard of them, Golden Oak is a community that you can live in that is on Disney property. And those houses, I believe, start at a couple of $1 million and go up. They are super ultra rich mansions. And if you go to their website, you can look at some designs and photos, and you can even look at blueprints. They're gorgeous. They're for the super elite. They're not the sort of thing that you could just go and, pick up for a summer home. I mean, there are people out there who I'm sure rich enough where they can, but, for the average person watching this video, it's never going to happen. But I think it's pretty cool. I think from a business decision, that's sort of a move that Disney can make in the short term if they need to up their earnings, because they have a lot of property on Disney World, and a lot of it's untouched, some of it intentionally so because it's an animal reserve, some of it unintentionally, that it's just there for when they need projects. And so, to me, it seemed like they needed some money in the short term. Developing, a plot of land with super expensive houses seems like a no-brainer to make some really quick cash. I'd hope it wouldn't continue to grow. There's nothing specifically about Golden Oak that screams Epcot or futuristic or, what Walt wanted with the City of Tomorrow. It's really just more of something of convenience and luxury, right? Really nice mansions, and they have buses that go to all the parks. So, if you have a couple of million laying around and you want to live at Disney, there's one of your options. So there you have it, another great week of questions. I want to thank you all for asking some fantastic questions. I can't wait for future ones. If you want to leave a question for me to answer, all you have to do is drop it in the comments below, or you could tweet them at me. I'm at RobPlays. If you want more Disney content, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button. I do 3 a week. If you want even more Disney content, you can check out the podcast that Christine and I do every week called the Tomorrowland Transit Authorities. You can find all of the information on our website, ttapodcast.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at the TTA Podcast. Thank you all for watching. Whatever you do this week, make the most of it because it makes it that much better. And I hope to see you next time for the next Disney Q&A. Bye, everybody.